Hey, listeners, and welcome to the You Are Epic podcast. This is where we honor the people who've helped build not just our industry, but our communities. I'm Angela Hucker, and I am so glad that you're here. So, I'm taking the time to sit down with people who've been in construction for years, people who've been through the ups, the downs, and everything in between. You're going to hear real stories of resilience, growth, and moments that shaped who they are. This podcast is for those that want to learn more from people who've been walking this path for some time, and they're helping to lift up others and quietly making a difference along the way. It's also to show you that your journey matters and your voice matters. And in case you've forgotten, you are epic. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Cory Thomas Fisk, founder of Construction Management Online, curriculum creator, and master planning strategist with nearly 30 years of experience in the construction industry. As owner of Thomas Construction Company and a professor of construction management technology at Cosumnes River College for almost 2 decades, Cory has combined real-world project delivery with innovative education. She is passionate about equipping the next generation of leaders with not only technical skills, but also the behavioural awareness, soft skills, and mindset needed to thrive. Through Construction Management Online, Cory is reshaping how the industry learns, helping tradespeople transition from the field to management with confidence. So it's so awesome to have you here, Cory. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such an honor. So, one thing I always love to start with our guests is I'm really curious how people get started in this industry. So, I'd love to hear how did you get started all those years ago?
Well, I certainly did not have the intention of staying in the construction industry, but in the summers, my dad was an owner operator and a 140G blade man. And so I would work construction in the summers. I would run guineas and clean his windrows as he was grading. And I did that every summer to make money for college. Then when I got done with college, I thought, fantastic. I'll go into the career that I love, which was going to be in the equine industry. But I graduated from Texas A&M and found that my student loans were more than what I was going to be making for an annual salary.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, I'll go back into construction and I'll work 2 years, clean out my student loans, and then I'll be able to start in the industry that I love. But while I was working as a laborer out on a prison project, the
Oh,
senior
wow.
construction manager just happened to be from Texas A&M University, and he heard I had a degree, and so he drove around and grabbed me out of the field and brought me in as a field engineer, and it completely changed my life. And so
Wow.
I've been doing construction management ever since.
Wow, that's incredible. And so the journey from there to where you are now, where you're teaching as well, what did that look like? Because that wouldn't have been just a straight linear path.
Well, we typically do what's comfortable and we follow in what we see. So my dad was an operator, my mom was a teacher, so I became a construction teacher. But you're right, that's not the way that it happened. It's never that pretty. I didn't plan on how it was going to go, but as I was going through my steps of becoming a field engineer, a construction manager, and a project manager, my dad started to do his own jobs and kept getting in trouble because he was doing that typical contractor handshake and didn't
Oh,
really have a
yes.
contractor's license or anything. So I went and got my contractor's license, a Class A general engineering contractor's license, and started Thomas Construction Company, mostly to keep my dad and my brother out of trouble. But what it did is open a lot of doors for me and a lot of opportunities. And so I started my entrepreneurial road there. And then life happened. And I got married and I got divorced. And then I got married again. And this time I had two beautiful boys. And after that divorce, I needed an occupation that was going to align with my boys because I found that it was going to be very hard to be a corporate woman the way that I knew corporate women were supposed to work in the industry.
Hmm.
And so becoming a teacher was the best option. And so I had my master's in curriculum and instruction. And so moving in and becoming a college professor was an opportunity that at first I didn't care much for. It was simply out of requirement. But
Yeah.
since I've really just enjoyed so much being able to teach, mentor, lead students into understanding how absolutely amazing the construction industry is.
And that's incredible because that's the big part. Like you've come from the field, you understand the field, you've seen, like you've set up your own construction company for, to protect your dad and your brother, and you've understand what it's like to actually be out there and do it, and then be able to bring that into a learning environment as well to help others understand how great it is as well, because that sort of seems to be a bit of a missing piece.
Well, it's like we said earlier, God creates challenges and opportunities that direct our path. And in that journey, it really isn't about where we end up, it's about what we learn in our experiences along the way.
Mm.
And I was an executive director, I was a facility director, I was a program manager, project manager, labor, equipment operator, and a teacher. These have all collaborated into exactly who I am today and why I was needed to go through all of those experiences
Mm.
in order to be able to create opportunities to speak to people and know exactly where they're coming from in almost every aspect of the construction industry.
Such an incredible journey that you've had, and thank you for sharing that. What I'd love to do is just go back like to the beginning where you started, where you said you started as a field laborer and then you moved into that engineering role and stuff. Now, women wouldn't have been very common in the industry all those years ago. And
What?
yeah, well, no,
I'm
not
not that old. I think it's still like it went from
you know,
29 last year. It's like
just a few
35
years
now.
ago.
So yeah.
But I'm curious to know, like, what kind of barriers you faced as a female when you were stepping into those roles, because, like, we weren't common back then. We were there, of course, but, it was not normal to have women in the industry. Like, we were kind of set up for certain roles, which was, in the office and things like that. But to be in the field and doing, the field work and everything. What kind of barriers did you actually face as a result of that? And then obviously setting up your own company as well.
Yeah. So I love my dad dearly. He's been passed away now for about 4 years. But um, when I was working those summers, my dad was 6'4", 285 pounds. There wasn't really much interaction between myself and anyone else on the job site. Like
Yeah.
my
Yep.
dad was my biggest protector. So in that ability to be able to grow in the industry without some of the distractions that can happen for women out in the industry, I gained a very good and healthy perspective of that I belonged here. I really didn't ever feel like it wasn't for me. I was able to discover and create this world where I was able to work hard. It felt good to sweat. It felt good to work out. It felt good to see your accomplishments. And I had the umbrella protection of my dad.
Yeah.
When I went into working pretty much full time for those 2 years, I was on a job site with about 500 men, and there was between 4 to 6 women at any one time on the project site. On the job site side, there were some women in the office trailers, but they very rarely even came out into the field. And so that is where I first started to learn of the difficulties of women on a job site. I still never felt like I didn't belong. Like I felt like I had a right to be there and that I was working as hard as anyone else. But the sexual tone of everything at 24 years old, it was a lot to handle. And, we didn't get our own blue rooms at that time or, the bathrooms on the job site. And so I would have to go and use those. And it was not a pleasant experience for me of what was being said about me or written about me in those situations. I would
Mm.
come off of the job site. There would always be notes left on my car, some to the point where, I mean, my boss was worried about stalking and things like that happening. And so it did expose a part of the industry that I didn't care for. But as I've gone through the industry that way, I've recognized that first, we're doing a really good job of educating our fathers, our brothers, our best friends, of understanding the difference between us when we're at home and us when we're on a work site. But then I've also really understood that those are sometimes far and few between, those people who have that attitude towards women. And I need to have a thick enough skin to be able to work through those particular situations, because there are a lot of amazing people in the
Mm.
construction industry, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much, and the brotherhood and sisterhood that I'm able to have with other people that work in the industry.
Mm.
And so now, in reflection, even though there were some very hard days and some very dark, depressing days in that type of a situation, I now know that that is, again, was part of the requirement for my growth, but isn't something that I have to experience every day.
Mm. So, with that, and thank you for sharing that, what kind of skills did you learn as a result of those experiences? Because, as you said, like we're all given the things, to help us grow as a person, and there would have been tremendous growth with that as well. And what sort of things did you learn about yourself as a person, and how has that helped you grow?
Well, I would say that I've learned more now that I'm a little longer in the tooth, in the sense of understanding to remove emotion from the situation and rely on evidence and facts before you start an argument. Because in those early days when I was being treated badly, it was very easy for me to be defensive and want to get in somebody's face and make sure that they understood that I wasn't going to back down. And again, having a dad that was 6'4", 285, I had talked back to very intimidating men my whole life. So it wasn't something that really scared me. And so in that, I would say, sense, I've been able to learn that, you get more bees with honey, and making sure that there is better collaboration in what you're doing, but to really educate people through the situation instead of pushing your agenda or pushing your opinion, being able to bring things to the table that allowed them to discover and create their own opinion of the situation. And so I don't say that I've learned very much at the very beginning, but I have definitely learned a lot since being in the construction industry that I hope to be able to share with younger people who can make that transition earlier than I did.
And so with what you're doing now, you're helping people with that transition as well. And part of that is those, behavioral skills and those soft skills and everything. So what kind of things are you helping them with in that regards?
So I love this. So through the curriculum at Construction Management Online, the biggest thing that I saw was a disconnect between the site and the office. And just recognizing that when we're out on the job site, our whole focus is about production. It's about getting the job done. And at the end of the day, if you think about it, you're like, okay, well, did my extra production or my 2 hours more of work really get acknowledged or accepted by the company the way that I think that I deserved it to be seen? And so, in recognizing that, we just step back a little bit and try to go for the long game instead of just each individual project.
Mm.
And understanding that because the construction industry is so diverse, has so many different characters,
Yes.
personalities, genders, cultures, traits, and levels of education and levels of experience, it's incredibly important to be flexible, curious, and open in all aspects of everything that we do. Always keeping the four prime qualities in mind, and that's safety, budget, time, and quality, but doing it in a way that's able to support the construction industry. And so we do that through education, we do that through mentoring, and we do that through really being able to help people see and appreciate what other people are contributing to the team,
Mm.
so that we're not always fixated or focused on what everyone else is doing, and maintain more accountability for what our individual response needs to be.
And that's that one word, accountability, like that is a big part of what is actually missing in this industry is people being accountable for what they're doing and not just the work that they're doing, but their behaviors and their actions and how they're speaking to others and how they're treating others and respect and all those different things as well. And, like I'd love to get your take on that as well with what you see from your experience.
Well, I agree with you. But I would say that because of the diversity of my experience, I've also been exposed to other corporate disciplines. And these male majority industries really are very similar to what we experience in the construction industry. So a lot of people like to say, oh, the construction industry, those dirty guys that are, whistling at girls walking down the sidewalk. Well, I guarantee you that if you're walking down a sidewalk with a bunch of executives on the 21st floor, they're all at the window. Okay. So it's not like it's different. It's just how are we responding to it? And so, really understanding that when people don't know, there's an assumption that they do know what's right and what's wrong. But if they're not educated through that, and if you don't have the confidence in yourself or the backbone that it takes, then find somebody else. But in that moment is the teaching time. That's the lesson when you can say to someone, hey, look, listen, I don't know what barn you've been living in. That is not the way that you need to talk to me. Like,
Yeah.
I deserve to be talked to the same way that you think that you should be talked to. So it really is the golden rule and just making sure that you treat everyone the way that you would like to be treated.
And that's a big part. I mean, it comes back to respect ultimately, isn't it? Like, respecting yourself and respecting others and treat people how you would like to be treated as well. But I mean, I know in Australia that that's not always the case. And I do agree that, there are some great people and, I've had a long time in the industry and certainly have made some amazing friendships as a result of my time in the industry. And there are some genuinely good people. And there is that whether it's a minority or not, that, just like they just miss the mark.
Yeah, I mean, and it happens, I believe, everywhere. It's just a matter of what's being done to correct it in the moment. If you don't have the
Mm.
support to be able to correct something, because, say, for instance, you have a group of men who are being extremely productive, and so in that moment, there's not anyone who's going to say something to them because they're getting done what needs to be done, and that is money in the pocket of the construction owner.
Mm.
And that's why it's so deflating to hear some of these people talk about, yes, this is what the construction industry needs, and this is what we need to do, and here's the program for you to follow. And all of the construction companies are like, absolutely, we want to be on board. We want to keep pulling and making our workforce. But then the webinar closes and then there's crickets. Nobody says or does anything.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really frustrating to try to get things fixed and try to work with things because again, these individuals, most of them who are acting like that, they're acting like that because that's what they've been taught and what they've learned. They may not even really recognize that there is a different way. And in
Mm.
that different way may create more opportunity for them, may create more growth for them, may create um, how they feel about themselves.
Mm. And that's a key part, isn't it? It's about like none of us know what we don't know. So it's a big thing because especially we're a product of our environment, and if we've grown up in an environment where this is how things are done and we don't know any different, how do you then actually get that brought to your awareness to make you realize that, hey, that's not okay or that's not kosher, and we don't do that. Like let's try a different way. And that's a big part of, what I see is missing because when you think about the construction industry as a whole, there is a role literally for every single person in this industry because there's so many things that actually support this industry. Like it is its own ecosystem as well with all the support roles from designers and architects to engineers to safety to geotech to procurement and contracts and project controls and all the different things that are behind the scenes. It's not just physically being on the tools as well. So, for me, and then when you bring that all in, it can be a bit of a boiling pot because you have so many different people, cultures, beliefs, systems, programming essentially, as to how they've been raised. And what would you like to see with what you're doing with your training? What would you like to see moving forward to help kind of shift the dial with this?
Well, I think that's where we need to recognize, it's not just a gender thing that happens.
No.
The same thing's happening with entry level people or young people trying to break into the construction industry and feeling as though they're not being heard or respected by seasoned workers. And the seasoned worker is like, well, you got all these smart ass kids coming in trying to redesign the wheel, and we've already been through that, and so instead of really recognizing that we each have something to give and something to learn from each other, even having patience in being able to allow someone to tell a story a little bit longer than what we maybe normally would, because not just are we listening to that story, but we're giving a gift to that person who's able to tell and reflect and have that feeling of pride once again over that big project that they finished and that they built. So in really understanding that some people don't want to change. Some people are always going to be that, and they'll be that rock in the wheel that we need to iron out, every once in a while. And maybe that means that they just don't keep their job as long as the people who are willing to comply and be able to
Mm.
collaborate and coordinate with each other. But the construction industry is really low on the amount of people that we have for our workforce. So to date, we've just been taking in whoever we want and whoever we can in order to be able to get them. But AI is going to change this a lot, whether construction wants to admit it or not, or be open to it. AI is going to start creating opportunities to tighten those pods or those specialty people that are working in certain areas of the construction industry. We'll always need those who are going to provide production and stay focused on linear scale and be able to really get the work done. But there's going to be an opportunity to be much more effective and efficient in our planning and really understanding before implementation, which hopefully will take out a lot of that risk and a lot of those repeatable mistakes that we've had
Mm.
to do in the past.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing is that I don't think we fully understand how AI is actually going to help moving forward as well, because it's still, yes, it's been out for a few years, but it's so rapidly changing at the moment with things. And, the technology is incredible and it's certainly going to help with risk mitigation and, reducing of errors and things like that as well. So it's remarkable. Now, with that, that's sort of more from an individual perspective. From a company perspective, what would you like to see companies to start doing? Because there's obviously, different people have got all these different grand ideas about, how to make the industry better and programs and this and that and training and whatnot. But what would you like to see kind of as whether it's a baseline or something like that that companies are actually doing to help kind of set a standard for how this industry should be?
Well, there's what I dream about and what I know is capable.
So
so
let's go with what
I
you dream about. What would you dream?
because if anything that I dream about, even though I'm an introvert, it is people-centered focus. And it's not people-centered focus in the way a lot of people want. Okay, so a lot of people want people-centered focus in that they want to be taken care of, they want to get a higher salary, they want to have the hours that they want to work. When I'm talking about people centered, I'm simply talking about having respect for each other, love for watching other people advance and grow, and being able to be that support that allows us to identify our individual skill sets
Hmm.
and then be open to leaning on the experience of other people who can fill the gaps in skills where we are not as good. And so we move away from this title or position situation and move more into a skill set based area of production. And this allows us to be able to work in flow. We're able to work in a way that we love our work. We're very good at it because it's very innate and inherent to us and our natural DNA and what it is that we're created to do. And it's fun and we love it and we love sharing it with people and we build passion. When you build that passion, you build an energy. That energy is contagious. And then everybody is working on everything in a way that just provides productivity, but most importantly, really helps us recognize that this life is only so long. And if you're not enjoying every day of this life, then there's a reflection that needs to happen. Because if you're gone tomorrow, what is it that you left as your legacy from before?
Mm.
And really preparing job sites and opportunities. And it's possible for us to be working in our skill set, in our genius zone, in our flow, in a way that allows us to still get the projects done. And I believe that we'll find done in a much more effective, efficient, and profitable manner.
I love that. I love that. And thank you for sharing that. And one of the words that you've touched on, which I'd love to get your perspective on, is that productivity, because productivity is a major issue at the moment, and particularly here in Australia. Like we've got the lowest productivity in the industry ever, as a result of, like a number of things which you've touched on. But what does good productivity look like for you, and what do you think is needed to be able to achieve that good productivity?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen is the understanding that the definition of productivity is not the same definition that we've used for the previous 60 plus years. So when we originally started with construction, men are measured on the value of how much work happens in a day, how much they're able to get done. It doesn't matter if it's good work, it doesn't matter if it's right work, it just matters that they are working and that they are showing production. And I think that now, with the innovation and creativity that we're finding in the construction industry and the addition of the skill sets that women are very strong in, that we're going to see a flexibility and adaptability that allows us to be able to plan before implementation, which reduces risk and increases our opportunity to be able to get more work done in a shorter period of time. The problem is that when you put a bunch of men in a room to start planning something, half of them are fidgeting because they feel like they should be out doing something,
Yeah.
and then the other half don't really understand how to plan in a collaborative way because egos can get in the way and very type A personalities where everybody immediately jumps into a linear type of thinking, which
Yeah.
is sounds like it's not good, but it's the whole purpose of how men are designed is to be able to focus and get it done. And so those skill sets are really are causing resistance in the production of construction projects as complex as they are today. And so changing that definition of productivity is going to be one of the first things that we really need to work on and be able to show men how to reset their work skills in a way that still flows nicely for them, but allows them to appreciate why it's necessary to do these other skills that they don't have to do, but they have to be able to dedicate to other people. So whether that be planning or organizing, managing, procurement, whatever those skills are.
Oh, I love that. And it's, the whole thing is it's not just one thing, it's a multitude of different things that tie into it. So thank you for going through that. Really appreciate that. Now, when we think about what you're doing now through construction management online and the education piece that you're bringing to the table with that, I'd love to hear, like some success stories from, being able to do that and what you've seen as a result of providing that education to people.
Well, the my favorite is the opportunity to be able to provide mentorship with our curriculum. So, in that mentorship, what I do is I work with companies and I serve almost what you might call a fractional senior project manager executive. And so I lead the team, and in that educational process where they get to learn deeper about different aspects of construction systems and processes and how we're able to really create efficiency in those for productivity and profit, I'm also able to walk them through tough situations that I probably have already been through or been through something very similar.
Yeah.
And so being able to give them the tools to kind of pause the situation for a moment so that they can tell a heated superintendent, hey, look, I can tell that you're really upset about this right now. I don't have all of the information I need. So if I can meet with you later this afternoon, just give me some time to get some research done. And then they can call me, we can jump on a call and we can strategize and work through what happened, what do we need to do, how do we avoid it in the future, and just be able to mentor them through that lived experience.
Mm.
We can teach all day long, but God created experience for it to implement into our system. And so you can't skip experience. You have to go through it yourself. And the way that we've been doing it as parents, we've been kind of helicopter parenting, protecting our children. But in that, we have not allowed them to fail in a way that allows them to have resistance and the desire to get back up and try again because they don't know how to fail. They're like, they don't want to start something because they're afraid of failure. So they're waiting for someone to hold their hand through that initial knowledge point until they know how to be able to pick it up and do it without that failure. So being a mentor allows them to be able to learn through that experience, be able to discover, be able to fail, but then have support in getting back up and getting back on track. And so that's what I love doing with it. We just released our latest little girls storybook. It's called The Rise of CM Sally, a leading lady in construction. And it
Nice.
actually has different categories of different job opportunities in the construction industry, and then links to a educational plan for each of those career paths. So being able to, for all of us, to be able to be role models and show and reflect all of the different opportunities in the construction industry is going to be really important. And that's what I love doing with construction management online.
Yeah, no, and it's so important is being able to showcase everything that is available because it's not well known, all those different support functions in the industry as well. And, opening people's eyes that, there are some things that are possible in another way, like you don't have to be on the tools, essentially. So,
Oh, and all of the new stuff that's completely attractive to our younger generation,
yeah,
including data strategist or
yeah.
innovation creator or drone operator. I mean, these are all things that the construction industry is going to be in very sincere need of. And it can be fun. Your job can be fun.
I love that. I love that. Now, Corey, what I'd love to ask you is when you think back on your extensive career that you've had, and you've had 20 years with the teaching aspect, and you've been involved in the industry, for 3 decades. What's kind of a real standout moment or a project or something that is just kind of stands out, and it could be for a good reason, could be for a bad reason, could be, something that you're proud of. I'd love to hear that about something that's a bit of a standout for you of what you've seen in your time.
Well, I'll fall back on one that I think all of us in the construction industry do, and that is that we have our kids in the back seat, and as we're driving by, we're like, I built that.
Yeah.
And recognizing that I really didn't build it. Me and about 2,000 of my best
Yeah,
friends built
yeah.
that. And so in recognizing that I was a facility director for an Indian tribe in Northern California, and one of the Indian members wanted his house to be a snow white cottage. And at first, I just really didn't understand what that meant. Okay, I'm building a custom home.
Yeah.
But when we started really getting into it and just seeing this person who had struggled their whole life, being given the opportunity to have some extra money because the tribe had put themselves in that position, and being able to spend it in a way that created a childhood dream for this
Oh,
65 plus year old man,
oh,
it was really special. And so when we finished the whole job, I had bought a cardboard cutout of Snow White, and I put her next to his door when we
oh.
turned the house over to him. And he cried, I cried, but it was really special.
And to do something like that, like to make an impact in someone's life like that at 65 and, to have their childhood dream come to fruition that, hey, now I'm actually going to have a Snow White house as well. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And when you think about, you know, moving forward, what's kind of on the cards for Cory moving forward? What would you like to do moving forward?
Yeah, I really just I'm just here in service, and as much as I preach for everyone to have a master plan and have a very vivid vision of where you want to be, um, I feel as though my life is complete and my life is full. I have beautiful boys, I have a wonderful husband, I have a beautiful home. I've just really at a point where I'm able to give. And what I have to give is the gift of my knowledge from the last 30 years. And so being able to continue producing it in a way that through my research has allowed me to be able to create the understanding of neuroplasticity and being able to really connect music and stories and generational storytelling and behavior and the length of the videos and the content that's in the videos to be able to reach as deep, as fast, and as many people as I can in order to be able to give them what they need to be great construction managers. But this is the one thing that I will always say and that I love so much about the construction industry is that even if you don't know what you want to do in your life, construction management is exactly the pathway that you should jump into until it is revealed to you what your destination or your purpose is. Because the skills that we learn in construction management are life skills that will carry on in every aspect of our life.
Mm,
So whether it's a scheduling a doctor's appointment or budgeting our checkbook or communicating with our child's teacher, these are all skills that we have to use in the construction industry.
mm.
Sometimes, if they're a little bit harder, it's not always easy to communicate with everyone on a construction site, but I would argue it's not always easy to communicate with your child's teacher. So,
No, or even your child sometimes. So,
yeah, for sure.
especially when they hit that teenage and 18-year-old where they start becoming a little bit independent, but you're not ready to let go of those reins as yet. So,
Yes, I'm definitely fighting through that myself, but mine's 21 and 18, but I don't remember being that age and knowing as much as they do for since they were 14. So
but mind you, I,
there's
I I think back of that age and I'm like, I think all of us at 18 thought we knew everything. We knew how the world
yeah.
operated, but it's only when we grow up a little bit that we realize, oh, maybe not, maybe not.
And that's the best thing to recognize is that in all that we do, we're all leaders. We're all two steps ahead of someone else, no matter where we're at. And so in that moment of recognizing that if we take the time to teach someone something that we know, we actually are going to redefine our own expertise and mastery in being able to break that down into chewable pieces for someone else to understand. But the most important thing to understand is that you can't teach someone through something. They're at some point going to have to touch it, feel it, taste it, experience it for themselves in
Mm.
order for them to be able to maintain the foundation of that knowledge to create a vertical growth for their personal development. So,
Mm. And I think there's an element, you're absolutely right. There's an element there that you can learn from someone, but you actually can't really, especially the human side of things as well. So you actually can't experience what it feels like, some immense pain until you've actually experienced that yourself. So, yes, you can hear someone speak about it and you can empathize with them, but until you've actually experienced it yourself, you still don't grasp it. So it's a lot of those human skills. The technical stuff, that's kind of textbooks, things that you can do every day of the week because they're just the textbook stuff. It's the human stuff that is slightly different as well. So,
Yeah, I almost, if I could develop a prerequisite of a perfect education plan, it would include being in a sport and having an animal to take care of.
yeah.
Those two things, I think, create the character in humanity that give you some of those experiences. And I think you're absolutely correct on that.
And the part of caring for an animal because they're not communicating back with you the way that a human does. I mean, they show you love and affection in a different way, but you're actually selflessly caring for another living thing and feeding it. And, if you're a dog, you're picking up its poop and all of that stuff. And, you know, but you're not necessarily getting back like someone talking to you going, "Oh, I love you. Like, thank you for cleaning up my poop for me," and things like that. That a
But
human,
you are, because you're getting eternal forgiveness in everything that you
yes.
do. That animal is forgiving you and giving you
Yeah.
unconditional love. And
It is the
I think that that's one thing that we don't recognize, and this is kind of outside the construction realm, which I do like to play because I call it cross-pollination.
yeah.
When you stay in a vacuum, then you only learn what's in the vacuum. When you're able to jump out of your own comfort zone and learn about other things, then that's when you really truly start growing. And what I've understood is that when you are, really trying to create that well-roundedness of a person and
Mm,
being able to understand that it's about love, unconditional love, and that it's about respect and it's about accountability. That's when you really start being able to help someone see the opportunity to build their character in a way that they can custom design it intentionally, not just walk through the door, the next
mm,
open opportunity or the next opportunity or the next job opening that there is. You actually have a plan of what job to take in order to be able to be in alignment with what you want for your goals.
mm, mm. No, I love that, and that's just beautiful. And thank you for that input there. So, what I'd love to ask you in closing, Corey, if you had someone standing in front of you, and it's like, if there is just one thing I could tell this person, and it could be about life, it could be about the construction industry. I like to call this, your words of wisdom. So, Corey's words of wisdom that is kind of like, if I just get the opportunity to tell people this, it would be, what would that be exactly?
Um, it would be that it really has nothing to do with construction. It has everything to do with your mindset and self awareness. Being able to be aware of what's happening around you, what's
Mm,
happening to you, what's happening in the world, what's happening, and that awareness being able to assist you in supporting and structuring a plan of how you're going to move forward before implementation. And so just really recognizing that in order to do that, your mind has to be flexible, it has to be curious, it has to, be like a child that hasn't had because I said so or no, don't touch that. The curiosity of a child will ask questions endlessly without concern of what the consequences are.
yeah.
They're asking knowledge. And if we return to that and we're able to be more creative in our thinking, more open, and doing it all with love, then we're going to create just some amazing opportunities for ourselves.
Yeah, no, and that's beautiful. That sums it up beautifully. And it is about that curiosity and just having, that bit of a growth mindset as well and being curious and asking the questions why. Well, why does that happen and why is that like that? And, go back to your childhood and, like you're 100% right. Kids would ask, well, why? Why can't I
Yeah.
do that? Why can't I do that? You're telling me no, but why? So,
Yeah, the problem is don't go up to a superintendent while he's
yeah.
in the middle of a framing project and ask him that. This
Yeah.
is the part of awareness that you need to have is the
Yes.
understanding of timing and when to be able to do that as well. But I think that having that curiosity is really important, but then also understanding and appreciating that the person that you're responding to or asking isn't necessarily in the same frame of mind that you are until you educate them to that place.
Mm.
So just don't walk up to somebody and start
No.
asking questions,
No. Yeah. And
especially if
especially,
they have a hammer in their hand. Yeah.
yeah, or there's a concrete pour happening or something like that. So
Yeah.
it doesn't work, but
No,
time and a place for everything. No, I love
absolutely.
that. I love that. Well, Cory, it's been an absolute honor to talk to you. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you're doing for the industry as well and being the selfless leader that you are with helping bring your wisdom and knowledge to make this industry better. You're making a difference with what you're doing and the people that you're impacting. And, I'm just super grateful that we had the opportunity to talk. So thank you for your contribution to the industry and the world as a whole, and the difference that you're making in this space. And we really appreciate you and the time that you've given us.
Thank you. It's all very kind words. I really appreciate it. And I think thank you also because like we were talking earlier, it's sometimes not easy at all, and can sometimes be very lonely. And
Mm.
just want you to know that I'm there to support you and anyone else in the construction industry. It's a beautiful, beautiful industry to be in, and I'm glad I'm here.
Thank you, Cory. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. I hope this conversation gave you something that you can take with you, whether it be a little bit of insight, inspiration, or maybe just a reminder that you're not alone. If it resonated with you, please share because we're better when we help build each other up. And remember that your experience, your story, and your journey, it all matters more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay connected, and never forget you are epic.